Let's get real. Animation has never just been for kids, but some movies break the family-friendly barrier, run it over, set it on fire, and mail the ashes to your childhood. Today, we're digging into 10 animated films so wild, so jaw-droppingly offensive, there's no way they would have survived the buttoned-up, censorship-happy 1970s. Which movies crossed the line, and why do we still talk about them? Stay close, because this countdown doesn't pull any punches. South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, 1999. There's pushing the envelope, and then there's lighting it up, tossing it at the White House, and filming the explosion for pay-per-view. Enter South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. In 1999, Trey Parker and Matt Stone decided TV wasn't a big enough sandbox for their 4 foul-mouthed kids from Colorado. So they blew the doors off with a movie that's basically a musical battle cry against censorship, decency, and just about every sacred cow in America. The setup? The kids sneak into an R-rated movie, pick up a few dozen new swear words, and trigger an international incident that escalates into war. The real fireworks, though, are in the script lines so filthy the MPA nearly lost its mind, jokes about everything from Satan's love life to the Canadian military, and a relentless parade of musical numbers that feel like Disney after a 3-day bender. Remember, this is a film where the villain is literally the mother of one of the main characters, and her name is used in a song that rhymes with nothing fit for broadcast. The controversy wasn't just for show. Parents' groups howled. Lawmakers muttered about the downfall of civilization. The MPAA insisted on a record 399 script changes before they'd slap an R rating on it, not NC-17. But South Park just leaned in harder, making the whole film a meta-commentary on the absurdity of censorship itself. And let's be honest, no mainstream animation in the 1970s would have dared to go anywhere near this territory. Back then, heck was spicy. South Park is pure fire. In the end, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut didn't just offend. It shifted the conversation, proving that animated movies could be as sharp, savage, and unapologetically adult as anything live action. The 1970s, they would have hidden this one in a lead-line vault. And you know what? Even today, some people wish they had. Sausage Party, 2016. If you ever thought Pixar's Toy Story had a dark underbelly, Sausage Party will show you just how deep the rabbit hole goes, then push you in, laughing the whole way. This is what happens when Seth Rogen and his comedy crew are given free rein to imagine what food does when humans aren't looking. The answer? Well, let's just say you'll never look at a hot dog or a bun the same way again. On the surface, Sausage Party looks like another cutesy computer-animated adventure. Talking food? Check. Big musical numbers? Check. Existential crisis? Wait, what? Yeah, that's where things go off the rails. The plot quickly morphs into a madcap, hypersexual, profanity-laced journey as a pack of groceries discover the horrifying truth about their fate. They're being bought, sliced, and eaten by the very gods humans they worshipped. Cue existential panic, buckets of blood ketchup, and enough F-bombs to blow up a grocery store. But what really cements Sausage Party as an offense against any 1970s sensibility is its sheer audacity. There's a climactic food orgy that's so over the top you'll question if you're actually watching a cartoon or someone's fever dream after too much MSG. Every taboo is gleefully skewered: race, religion, politics, sex, and the humor is as unfiltered as a deli counter at closing time. If this film had come out in the 70s, it wouldn't just have been banned. It probably would have gotten the whole medium of animation thrown in the penalty box for a decade. Back then, the closest thing to edgy was Bugs Bunny cross-dressing. Sausage Party would have sent every church group, parent council, and congressman into apoplectic shock. Yet for all its insanity, Sausage Party is smart, subversive, and weirdly philosophical. In another era, it would have been impossible. In ours, it just left everyone hungry, and maybe a little disturbed. Fritz the Cat, 1972. If you think the 70s were all about free love and boundary pushing, let's get specific. Fritz the Cat was so far ahead of its time, even the 70s nearly choked on it. Released in 1972, Ralph Bakshi's adaptation of Robert Crumb's underground comic became the first American animated film to earn an X rating, and for good reason. If Disney was a word, Fritz was every word you're not supposed to say on television. The plot follows Fritz, a slacker college cat with a taste for sex, drugs, and revolution, as he stumbles through a hallucinogenic New York City teeming with every vice you could imagine. There are scenes of graphic sex between cats, among other species, drug use that would make Cheech and Chong blush, and political satire so raw you can practically hear the censors screaming. And that's before you get to the racial caricatures, which today would rightfully be called out for their offensiveness, but in the context of 1972 were both an attempted satire and a major red flag for anyone hoping for a safe cartoon experience. Fritz the Cat was banned in several countries, protested in others, and nearly didn't get made at all. In the conservative climate of the early 70s, studios wanted nothing to do with it. It was only Bakshi's dogged determination and the counterculture's hunger for shock value that brought it to screens at all. Even then, many theaters wouldn't show it, and it lived in the shadowy world of midnight movies and adult cinemas. What's wild is that, even today, Fritz the Cat remains jaw-droppingly explicit. If it had landed just 5 years earlier or in any other decade before, the outrage would have been volcanic. Parents were horrified. Critics were split. The animation world was never the same. Fritz opened a door, but it also made it clear this was a one-way trip. In the 1970s, cartoons didn't go here, and most people were glad they didn't. Percipilus 2007. Forget everything you think you know about coming-of-age animation. Percipilus doesn't just tell a story, it throws a Molotov cocktail at every sanitized, whitewashed expectation of what animated films can tackle. Released in 2007, this French-Iranian film, adapted from Marjane Satrapi's graphic novel, follows a young woman growing up during the Iranian Revolution. That alone would have made it unthinkable for the 70s, but Percipilus goes further, much further. This isn't a fairy tale. The animation is stark, mostly black and white, matching the gravity of its subject matter. We're talking war, political repression, female rebellion, state violence, family trauma, and personal identity. Scenes depict government executions, public beatings, and a teenage girl coming to terms with her sexuality and her defiance in a society that demands silence. It's raw, fearless, and relentlessly honest, a million miles from the sing-alongs and talking animals of classic Western animation. If Percipilus had tried to exist in the 1970s, it would have been shut down before the first frame was drawn. No American distributor would have touched it. Censors would have had nightmares. Just the idea of an animated film openly criticizing religion, politics, and gender roles would have been enough to get it blacklisted from every festival and banished from TV. Even in the 2000s, Percipilus faced bans and protests in several countries. Imagine that with 70s morals and Cold War paranoia layered on top. But that's what makes Percipilus so powerful. It isn't just offensive to the standards of a bygone era, it's a direct challenge to them. In the landscape of safe, G-rated animation, this is a full-scale rebellion in ink, and once you've seen it, you can't ever see animation the same way again. Waltz with Bashir 2008. If you think cartoons are for Saturday mornings and sugar cereal, Waltz with Bashir is here to rip the rug out from under you. This 2008 Israeli animated documentary, yes, documentary, dives headfirst into the real-life horrors of the 1982 Lebanon War, blending surreal, hallucinatory visuals with memories of trauma, guilt, and violence that would have sent every 1970s censor running for the hills. Director Ari Folman reconstructs his own buried memories as a young soldier, using animation not to escape reality, but to confront it in ways live action never could. We see tanks rolling through burning cities, soldiers haunted by nightmares, and the emotional fallout of the Sabra and Shatila massacre, all rendered in haunting, fluid animation that feels both dreamlike and brutally real. The imagery is often graphic, the emotions unfiltered, and the subject matter, PTSD, the morality of war, complicity in atrocity, absolutely unthinkable for animation of the 1970s. Back in that decade, animated features rarely ventured beyond fairy tales, slapstick, and the occasional sanitized life lesson. Waltz with Bashir would have been labeled dangerous, subversive, and banned outright in most countries, maybe even today. Instead, it won awards, stunned critics, and made audiences realize animation could be just as powerful and harrowing as any war movie. This isn't just a case of too much for the censors. It's a gut punch to the very idea of what animation is supposed to be. The 1970s would have buried Waltz with Bashir so deep we'd still be digging for it. But now, it stands as a stark reminder. Animation can go to the darkest places, and sometimes it has to. Anomalisa 2015. Animation as a therapy session? Anomalisa proves that the uncanny valley is a lot deeper and more emotionally naked than anyone in the polyester era of the 70s could have handled. Forget singing birds and plucky animal sidekicks. This is a stop-motion drama about depression, existential despair, and a hotel sex scene so intimate it could make even seasoned adults squirm. Co-directed by Charlie Kaufman, the maestro of neurotic, painfully honest storytelling, Anomalisa uses puppets to reveal what real people often hide. The story follows Michael Stone, a customer service guru numbed by the sameness of life. Every other character, from cab drivers to bellhops, has the same voice, literally the same actor, until he meets Lisa, whose uniqueness jolts him awake for a brief, fumbling night. The film's visual realism is eerie. Skin blemishes, awkward movements, visible seams in the puppets' faces. But what really shocked audiences and would have detonated the 70s animation rulebook is the unfiltered portrayal of loneliness, anxiety, and sexuality. Then comes the infamous hotel scene. Forget cutaways, clever innuendo, or cartoon modesty. Anomalisa shows an explicit, vulnerable, and deeply human sexual encounter, complete with all the anxious conversation, self-doubt, and awkward pauses that real intimacy brings. No censors to save you here, folks. The rawness is emotional and physical, stripping the characters of any veneer, literally and metaphorically. In the 1970s, this movie would have been locked in a closet next to banned books and never mentioned in polite company. Animation was supposed to be safe, a visual sugar high for kids. Anomalisa dares to ask, what if cartoons could be more honest about adulthood than most adult films? The answer is both beautiful and deeply uncomfortable. In another decade, it would have been called obscene. In ours, it's called a masterpiece and a wake-up call. Team America, World Police 2004. Picture this, a Jerry Bruckheimer action movie, an R-rated political satire, and a marionette puppet show all walk into a bar. Team America. World Police explodes out the other side, flipping the bird to every sense of good taste, restraint, and diplomatic decorum ever dreamed up in the 1970s. Brought to you by the South Park masterminds, this movie proves you can use puppets for absolutely anything, including jokes so tasteless, you'll wonder if you should even be laughing. The plot? America's secret paramilitary puppet team fights terror across the globe, leaving chaos and collateral damage in their wake as they battle not only cartoonish villains, but also caricatured versions of real-life celebrities. Every target is fair game: Hollywood liberals, dictators, Paris landmarks, even the United Nations. The language? As salty as a sailor in a sandstorm. The action? Explosions, gunfights, and at least one puppet fight, so over the top, it makes Rambo look like a school play. And then, there's the sex scene. No, not just a little puppet peck on the cheek, but a full-blown, multi-position, anatomically improbable marionette love fest that goes on so long you start to wonder if the censors had taken the day off. It's funny, sure, but it's also deliberately, aggressively offensive, blowing through barriers that would have had 1970s censors clutching their pearls and reaching for the smelling salts. Let's be real. If Team America had dropped in the 1970s, there would have been congressional hearings, TV boycotts, and maybe even international incidents. Instead, in the 2000s, it became a cult classic, precisely because it mocked everything and everyone with equal gusto. This is not your grandma's Thunderbirds. It's a nuclear roast session where no one comes out clean and no puppet string is left unpulled. Paprika 2006. Ever wondered what it would look like if your wildest, weirdest dreams burst through the TV screen and started dancing on your living room table? Paprika, the mind-bending anime from visionary director Satoshi Kon, does exactly that. And if you think 1970s America was ready for this kaleidoscopic fever dream, think again. This isn't just too much for the era. It's an entire sensory overload that would have left everyone from censors to casual viewers speechless. Paprika follows Dr. Atsuko Chiba, a brilliant psychologist who uses a device that lets her enter people's dreams, until the tech falls into the wrong hands, and the boundary between fantasy and reality shatters. The result is a psychedelic ride through carnivals, parades, and surreal landscapes where anything goes. But this isn't just visual chaos. It's loaded with mature, even disturbing themes. There's sexualized imagery, psychological horror, body horror, and sequences so intense they blur the line between art and nightmare. What really puts Paprika over the edge for 1970s standards is the unfiltered creativity and the film's willingness to push into taboo territory. The movie explores adult fears and desires, not just with symbolism, but with directness that animation of the time simply wasn't allowed. Violence is surreal but shocking. Sexuality is ambiguous but unmistakable. At one point, a character is literally assaulted by her own dream persona, a scene that's as psychologically loaded as it is visually audacious. In the 70s, this would have triggered a ban before anyone finished reading the script. Back then, trippy meant lava lamps, not metaphysical chaos and existential dread in animated form. Paprika isn't just too much for the censors, it's too much for any comfort zone. It proves that animation isn't just a medium for stories, but for entire universes, universes that, sometimes, are better left unexplored. Watership Down, 1978. You want to traumatize an entire generation? Show them Watership Down and tell them it's a cute cartoon about bunnies. Released in 1978, this British animated adaptation of Richard Adams' classic novel barely squeaked into theaters, and for good reason. It's a full-throttle descent into terror, loss, and violence that would have had the 1970s animation gatekeepers heading for the hills. Even by the looser standards of late 70s, Britain Watership Down was a line in the sand that most parents never saw coming. On the surface, it's the story of a group of rabbits fleeing the destruction of their home in search of a new safe haven. But this isn't Peter Rabbit or Bugs Bunny. The violence is not just implied, it's front and center. Rabbits fighting to the death, slashing, biting, blood everywhere. There are visions of mass slaughter, hallucinations, and existential terror. The film doesn't shy away from death, despair, or the primal brutality of nature, and it definitely doesn't care about your childhood innocence. When Watership Down hit screens, kids across the UK were left sobbing or scarred for life. Letters poured into newspapers. Parents called for warnings. Even critics were stunned by the film's willingness to go where no cartoon had gone before. In the U.S., censors slapped it with a PG, but even that felt like a cop-out. Decades later, Watership Down is still infamous for traumatizing audiences, and it's regularly cited as one of the darkest animated films ever made. Had this movie been released in the early or mid-1970s, especially in the U.S., it would have been quietly buried or edited beyond recognition. Instead, it stands as a cautionary tale. Just because it's animated doesn't mean it's safe, and sometimes the most innocent-looking stories hide the sharpest teeth. If you're still afraid of rabbits, you're not alone. Heavy Metal, 1981. All aboard the wildest, weirdest, and most absolutely NSFW ride animation has ever known. Heavy Metal. Released just after the 1970s but gestating during the heart of disco and bell-bottoms, this anthology film is a neon-drenched fever dream of sex, violence, sci-fi, and rock and roll. All the things that would have given 1970s censors a collective heart attack. Heavy Metal is a collection of stories, each more unhinged than the last, all connected by the mysterious evil orb known as the Lochnar. The animation style swings from pulpy to psychedelic, with stories of space pirates, undead soldiers, warrior women, and alien abductions. Oh, and did we mention the wall-to-wall nudity, graphic violence, and a soundtrack loaded with legendary rock bands? This is not the stuff of Saturday morning cartoons, unless you want to get grounded for life. The film was unapologetic in its pursuit of adult content. There are scenes of sexual assault, gratuitous bloodshed, drug use, and a general air of lawless adolescent fantasy run amok. It's the animated equivalent of a stack of underground comics, a hidden stash of vinyl, and a case of beer in the basement all rolled into one. Heavy Metal was never meant for kids, and it shows. If anyone had tried to make this in the actual 1970s, it would have been DOA. The culture wars, moral panics, and media watchdogs would have had a field day. Even when it did finally hit screens, it was controversial enough to be banned in some markets and attacked by parent groups. Yet it found an audience, one that wasn't afraid of a little danger, a lot of noise, and animation that finally grew up. In short, Heavy Metal is the party that the 70s were always too uptight to throw. If you want to see just how far animation can go, this is the cult classic that wrote the rulebook and then set it on fire. So there you have it, 10 animated movies that would have sent the 1970s into full meltdown mode. What's your take? Did we leave out a cartoon catastrophe you think deserves a spot? Or did one of these already fry your childhood memories? Drop your pics and hot takes in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives that go where nostalgia fears to tread. Until next time, keep your mind open and your popcorn ready.